So some of the findings in the studies that some of them do not really identify as sex workers, right? And also, I think that study challenged a lot of stereotypes around what sex work is, who's a sex worker, and so forth. So you'd find that even the idea of agency, African sex workers as a category, as a broader group, are considered victims. Half the time, that's how they're written, right? The accounts of African sex workers are always suggesting victimhood and lack of agency. And what I figured in the study is that they actually have a lot of agency to negotiate for safer sex, to stipulate how much they want and the terms. So there is a lot of agency that's never really written about. So I think, referring to what Chimamanda says, there's a danger to a single story. And I think what has been peddled is a single story about sex workers, and so it challenges, says it's not just black or white, it's not just agency or victimhood. Sometimes it's a continuum, and they experience it just like we also experience. In your job or mine, there are days when I'm not feeling it, and there are days when I enjoy it. So trying to figure out those stories in between, what are the nuances with sex work? Actually, you realize that most of the sex workers are men at the moment. Right, we have a high volume of male cisgender heterosexual men who are sex workers. But often when somebody just imagines what a sex worker is, it's a female, it's a woman. We have trans people who are doing incredibly well in sex work as an industry. And then there's some who just don't think sex work is a job, right? It's not employment, it's a survival strategy, and it ends just with that. We have some women who are doing it because they love their kids, they're mothers, they're not just sex objects as it is portrayed often in the academy or even in media. They're mothers, they're lovers, they're people that they love. Even the languaging around what sex work is and how we should not blanket approach the idea or the themes around sex work or as a topic. How sex work manifests, say, in the global north is quite different. So you look at Zimbabwe, the informal economy is almost like the mainstream. And one of those informal sectors that's thriving is sex work. Right. Yeah, so giving sex workers a platform to tell their own stories allowed for some of the myths, prejudices, stereotypes to be challenged, but also allowed us to know what sex work looks like from the perspective of those who are applying the trade, of those who are actually doing sex work. And what that kind of methodology does, popular participatory theatre, which I used, is it's not so much of me as a researcher getting in and interviewing them. Because what usually happens with interviewing is that sometimes it can be interrogative, so people tell you what you want to hear. But what's interesting about the methodology I used is that there were moments where the data was coming in from the process and not necessarily the product, which is the play. But as we were creating this play, what was happening and how does that translate? So I say to them, I want you to, in this scene, I want you to be holding your alcohol bottle and I want you to stagger. Then they said, I'm not going to go to work drunk with a bottle because I'll be peeing a lot. So take that out. That's not real. That is what you're imagining, but that's not. So the way they were challenging, even in the process of creating this play, suggests agency. I don't want that. You're the director, but I'm not putting that because that's not our lived experience, right? Yes, violence is there, but we have moments of joy. Who talks about the joys of doing sex work? Usually it's just about victimhood. They've been beaten, it's violence. And so I think that space allowed for some of the other stories to be told. And that's what I was going for.